Hi everyone and welcome back to Alejandro HD. And today I thought I would talk about two very interesting animes that I've watched recently, Citrus and Bloom Into You. Um, I was always a big fan of Citrus. I watched it. I've watched it quite a few times, both dubbed and subbed. And for me, for a long time, I hadn't found any anime that portrayed the Yuri genre quite like Citrus had, because Citrus had a lot of raw emotion and it had a lot of plot twists and sort of keep you on the edge of your seat sort of thing. What's going to happen next? All the sort of good signs of a good anime, and and well, manga as well. But I haven't read the manga, much to my own disappointment. But I'll get there. Um, so yeah, so that was kind of for a long time, for me anyway, the sort of king of the hill. Um, and there was always Bloom Into You that was always on my recommendations, but I never ever had time to watch it. You know, I always used to I had this sort of sort of notion in my mind that it's either going to be exactly like Citrus or it's going to be nothing like it, and it's going to be some sort of horrible, cheap adaptation of some kind of cash grab, sort of slurty, sort of just over the top and not very good anime. That's just what I had in my head. But I'm glad that those thoughts aren't still the same. When I watched Bloom Into You, my entire perception of that genre changed. Um, em- Emotions are quite hard to sort of get across in some of these different types of anime. Um, and the big difference I felt with Bloom Into You versus Citrus was that Citrus had well, Citrus was very much what you would expect from an anime. Like there was the will they won't they at the start. Had all the tropes. It had like the different characters that they that Yuzu would have to fight against in order to get May. May was dark and mysterious. Yuzu was colourful and bubbly. Um, and it was very chop change. Cut dry at the end. We all knew what was going to happen at the end. Really, I mean, kind of, kind of a what I'd say almost a problem with anime is that you sort of know from the very beginning what where it's going to go. Um, Most of the time, I do stress most of the time. There's some that really blow you out the water, which which is why I'm sort of comparing it to Bloom Into You, because when I first watched Bloom Into You, I kind of I was taken aback just first of all by its art style. I really liked the POV shots with the character Yu. You could see through her eyes. That was like one of the first things that I picked up on. I thought that was really, really good. And then when we meet the other character, her name escapes me for the moment. I'll remember. The dark haired chick. That one. Don't know if you can see my mouse. Oh, you can't. All right. Okay, that's not. Oh, you can. Yeah, I can't remember her name. I'll come back to me. But yeah, when we first meet her, um, it's like instantaneous. Her feelings towards you. Um, it's gonna annoy me. What's her name? Sorry, guys. Uh, Hold on. See, the problem with Japanese anime is that they always use their second and first names first, and I always get confused. Uh, that's my fault. Nanami, was it? That was her second name. Nanami. All right, cool. So, when they first meet, and immediately there's that connection, but unlike Citrus, where Citrus, um, Yuzu had this sort of conflicted attraction to me, like she didn't really understand how to process those feelings. You knew right off the bat that she was just not interested. She was just not interested in Nanami, And what I liked about it was the sort of genteel atmosphere that it created. When you watched the episodes, like it was more sort of they're coming together and they're sort of finding themselves and accepting who they were, compared to Citrus, where every episode there was something happening, there was some big major thing happening, and then at the end of the episode, they're a bit worse for wear, or like there was a new character introduced that was going to mess everything up again, such as it is in anime most of the time. With Bloom Into You, it was more of a steady pace. It was more just moseying along, and sometimes I did feel that it went flat a bit. There were some plots that sort of went nowhere. There were some characters I didn't really think needed to be there. There were some things there that just didn't make much sense. So it didn't tie the room very well together in some aspects. But what it did have was a unique take on this style of anime. Because I've tried to watch quite a few different um, Yuri animes, and the unfortunate thing about them is that they're all extremely, I won't say perverse, but they sort of push that content quite a bit, which is, I suppose, is fine. Um, but for That's what I liked about Citrus more, was that it did have that element. It did sometimes feel like it was written by a 16-year-old boy, but the always brought it back to a very mature understanding, and like it did have its silly moments, but overall it was a very like underlying deep trauma. There was a lot of problems with both characters. With Bloom Into You, and I think the title of Bloom Into You is really interesting because it takes time for the character to develop, especially you. Nanami is dead set on what she wants. She wants to have um, a relationship with you, whereas you definitely doesn't want that, at least at the beginning. But it's more of a case of you doesn't want to have this relationship because it's not like it's not like immediately she's straight or anything. It's more to do with the fact that she doesn't understand herself, because this is the first time that somebody's shown any sort of romantic interest in her. And I thought that, well, no, not the first time, the second time. The first time was, and this is why I think it's interesting, is compared to Citrus in Bloom Into You, we have you at the very beginning getting propositioned by a guy to go have a relationship with her, and she's not understanding or knowing how to deal with that. She doesn't it doesn't make her feel special. Um, and then Nanami explains that that happens to her as well, but she does have this special connection to you that she's developed, which you doesn't have at the moment or at the time. And as episodes progress, it unravels. Whereas in Citrus, it was more of a Mei sort of pushing herself onto Yuzu, and Yuzu not being able to really comprehend all of those feelings. But it's kind of like there's a exact there's a term for it in psychology. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's not like Stockholm syndrome, but it's something like that, where like Yuzu um has gets these sort of like attention that nobody else would give her, and she doesn't know how to sort of process that. And at the same time, May is doing these things, and she doesn't really know why she's doing them either, because this is just how their brains work. And Bloom Into You, it's very more straightforward. Is um, Nanami is saying these things, and you is like, maybe not, don't know. They're very sort of flip floppy about the whole thing. But those are very. I just wanted to talk about both of them in a sort of versus. Both of them are excellent in their own way. Um, Citrus, if you are very into straight to the point, straight to the point sort of plots, and if you're a 16-year-old boy, and Bloom Into You, if you're a bit more of a mature person and you're maybe just cracking this sort of genre for the first time, I would say go with Bloom Into You first. and then go for citrus, because citrus does get a bit wild. Anyway, I just thought I would share my thoughts on that, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.